The wind sang low across the open Texas plains, a lonesome whistle weaving through bone-dry mesquite and brittle prairie grass. Clay Dawson rode slow, his silhouette long in the dying light. A cod. The sun dipped behind distant hills, turning the sky to rust and fire. He kept his hat low, brim shadowing a face carved by sun, wind, and regret. Clay wasn't heading anywhere in particular. That's how he liked it. Drifting kept the memories dull. No land, no neighbors. No past to tie him down. Just Dusty, his old buckskin gelding, and the sound of hooves pressing stories into the hard-packed earth. He came upon the girl near dusk. At first glance, she looked like a sack of rags caught on a fence post, a tangle of pale limbs and dirty fabric flapping in the wind. But as Clay slowed his horse and drew closer, his gut tensed. It wasn't rags. It was a person. A girl, tied to the splintered rails like some outlawed animal left for the coyotes. Clay dismounted, boots crunching dry dirt as he approached. The girl stirred weakly, her skin sunburned and streaked with blood from rope burns. Her mouth was cracked, lips too dry to bleed. Big eyes blinked up at him, dazed and raw with fear. Easy, Clay muttered, crouching beside her. Ain't gonna hurt you. She winced as he reached for his knife, but he moved slow, slicing through the rough rope, cinched around her wrists. The moment they were free, she collapsed against him like a rag doll. Then, starved. She couldn't have been more than 18. He eased her to the ground and offered his canteen. She took it with trembling hands, water dribbling down her chin as she drank in greedy gulps. What's your name, miss? Ellie, she rasped. Ellie Jane Morgan. Who did this? She stared past him, toward the setting sun. My pa, she whispered. He was drunk. Again? Said I was cursed. Said the land turned sour 'cause of me. So he tied me here. Said the desert could have me. Clay's jaw tightened. He'd seen cruelty in Minnan battlefields, in saloons, behind church walls. But this was different. This was a man feeding his own child to the dirt and heat. You got family anywhere? He asked. No, sir. You ain't calling me sir. Name's Clay. Ellie wiped her mouth with the back of her hand, a flicker of fire returning to her eyes. Why'd you stop? Clay considered that for a moment, then glanced at the fence. Because somebody once found me the same way, and they didn't ride on. She said nothing, but her eyes softened. He helped her to his horse, wrapping his saddle blanket around her shoulders. She was so light. He worried the wind might carry her off. Where we going? She asked as he climbed into the saddle behind her. Someplace with shade and water. We'll figure the rest after. As they rode into the deepening dusk. The horizon stretched wide and empty ahead of them, just two souls, tied not by blood, but by hurt. Behind them, the fence swayed gently in the breeze, the ropes dangling like dead snakes. Whatever came next, Clay knew one thing for certain. He wasn't riding alone anymore. They reached Hollow Creek by sunrise, a dry bend in the land where old trappers once camped and moved on. Clay knew the place well. Shade from a cottonwood thicket, slow trickle of water that hadn't dried up in years. It's the kind of spot a man could disappear in if he wanted to. He helped Ellie down from the saddle. Her legs buckled, but she caught herself. You holding up? Clay asked. She nodded, weak but proud. Better than I look. He smirked faintly. That ain't saying much. Ellie gave a cracked lip smile, her first in days. Clay built a fire and set a tin pot over it to heat beans and coffee. Ellie sat cross-legged near the flames, wrapped in his bedroll. Wrists were red with broken skin. he offered her. Strip of clean cloth and a nod. She wrapped him herself, refusing help. Asterisk, he liked that. Strength in a storm, even if it came from stubbornness. Asterisk, you gonna ask me why I never ran before? She said after a while, eyes fixed on the flicker of flame. Asterisk, I reckon you will when you're ready. Asterisk, she looked up. I did, once, when I was 12. Got as far as Mentor's Bluff, but Pa found me. Broke my arm in front of the sheriff. Called me a liar. Said I'd gone mad since Ma died. Sheriff handed me right back over. Asterisk, Clay's eyes narrowed, fists curling around the coffee tin. Asterisk, some men deserve the rope. Okay, muttered. Asterisk, Ellie stared into the fire, voice low. I stopped believing anyone would ever care enough to fight for me. Asterisk, Clay didn't speak for a long moment. Then he said, you ever shoot a rifle? Asterisk, she blinked. No. Asterisk, tomorrow. You learn. That was the end of it. They stayed 4 days in the creek hollow. Clay cleaned the Winchester, taught Ellie how to hold it proper. Aim slow, squeeze, never jerk. She was sharp-eyed and listened well. On the second day, she split a tin can clean in half at 20 paces. By the third, she was cocking and firing like she'd been born in a saddle. Asterisk, the silence between them grew easier. Not warm, not yet, but understood. But peace, out here, never stayed long. Late on the 5th evening, Clay returned from scouting the ridge with a storm behind his eyes. Ellie looked up from where she was stringing rabbit over the fire. Asterisk, what is it? Asterisk, riders. 3, maybe 4. It's too far to see faces, but they ain't out hunting. It's moving slow, like they're sniffing a trail. Asterisk, Ellie stiffened. You. I think it's him. Asterisk, I think if it ain't, it will be soon. Asterisk, she swallowed hard. He won't stop. Asterisk, no, he won't. Clay turned and began breaking camp. Fast, efficient. We're moving out. Tonight. Ellie helped him load the saddle, no questions asked, as night swallowed the land. They rode south under a moon, thin as a knife blade. Dusty's hooves were muffled in dry grass. The wind had gone still. Asterisk, what happens if they find us? Ellie asked. Asterisk, Clay didn't turn. Then I do what I should have done the first time I saw you. Asterisk, her voice barely a whisper. Kill him. Asterisk, only if he insists. Asterisk, Ellie was quiet a long time after that. Then she asked, why'd you leave your home, Clay? What was chasing you? He didn't answer right away. When I was a boy, I left behind a house full of shouting and fists. Rode with outlaws a while. Thought being feared was the same as being free. Then one day, I looked around and realized I was just another man my ma would have cried over. So I left that life. Been drifting ever since, trying not to be the kind of man who leaves scars behind. Asterisk, he looked at her then, until I found you. She met his eyes, something steady in her gaze now, and in that look, Clay knew. Asterisk, he'd found something worth facing the past for. Clay and Ellie rode through a canyon scarred by time, walls rising like jagged sentinels on either side. The sky above was pale and wide, but the air felt heavy as if the earth itself held its breath. They were 10 miles from Carson's Bluff, and Clay's cabin sat just beyond the next rise. He hadn't seen it in over 2 years. Asterisk, you sure about this place? Ellie asked, brushing tangled hair from her eyes. Asterisk, Clay gave a slow nod. Ain't much, but it's ours now. Asterisk, Ellie didn't reply. Her eyes stayed sharp, watchful. She'd changed over the past week. Still young, still raw, but she stood straighter in the saddle. Her shoulders carried weight now, and her voice no longer quivered like dry leaves in the wind. Asterisk, when they reached the ridge, Clay slowed. Below, nestled in a grove of twisted pines, sat a one-room cabin with a rusted tin roof and a crumbling porch. Fences half fallen, a corral, empty and silent. Time had weathered it, but it stood. Clay dismounted, boots crunching gravel. "This? Where you stopped running once?" Lee asked. Asterisk. He looked around and exhaled. "For a while." Asterisk. Inside, the air smelled of dust, smoke, and old memories. Clay set his rifle on the table and lit the lamp. Ellie moved slowly through the room, eyes scanning the walls, the rough-hewn shelves, cracked tin plates still stacked in the corner. Asterisk. She touched a faded photo nailed above the hearth. 2 boys, quacked, maybe 12, arms slung around each other, wearing the kind of smiles that didn't last long in the West. "Asterisk, that you?" she asked. Asterisk. Clay nodded. "Other one was my brother." Asterisk. "Where is he now?" Asterisk. "Buried, alongside the better part of who I was." Asterisk. She didn't ask more. It didn't need to. Asterisk. That night, Clay fixed the door, mended the roof patches, and stacked the firewood tight. Ellie cleaned the rifle by lamplight, her hands steady. Asterisk. But as dusk bled into night, the sound of distant hooves shattered their stillness. Asterisk. Clay was on his feet before the echo faded. He grabbed the rifle and stepped onto the porch. Kelly followed, shotgun cradled in her arms. Asterisk. For riders approached from the dark, torches in hand, faces half-lit and twisted. At their front rode a broad-shouldered man with mean eyes and a busted lip, Jonas Doyle. Ellie froze. "Pa." Asterisk. Clay stepped forward. "Turn around, Doyle. You ain't wanted here." Asterisk. Doyle sneered. "That girl's my blood. And ain't no man, nor mountain, gonna keep her from me." Asterisk. "She ain't your property." Asterisk. "She's my daughter, and you're harboring a thief." Asterisk. Clay's voice dropped, low and cold. Only thing stolen here was her childhood. The men behind Doyle shifted in their saddles, hands near pistols. Clay raised the rifle chest high. "You draw on me, Doyle. I'll plant you before your men hit the dirt." Doyle's grin vanished. "You've always been good with that gun, Dawson, but you ain't faster than 4 men." Asterisk. Clay's eyes didn't flinch. "I don't have to be, just faster than you." Asterisk. There was a long silence. Only the wind moved, sling pine needles like whispers of the dead. Asterisk. Ellie stepped beside Clay, her voice cut through the dark like steel. Asterisk. "I ain't going back with you. Pa, you beat Ma into the grave. You'd have done the same to me." Asterisk. "You ungrateful little asterisk, you left me for buzzards." She shouted. "Tied me like an animal." Asterisk. The firelight flickered across her face, and Clay saw something shift in the riders behind Doyle. Doubt, shame. A man named Virgil lowered his pistol and looked away. Asterisk. "You've lost her," Clay said. "You just ain't man enough to admit it." Doyle's hand twitched toward his belt. Clay fired. Asterisk. The bullet caught Doyle in the shoulder, spinning him from the saddle like a rag doll. The others bawled in no return fire. No fight. Just fear, loud as thunder in their retreat. Asterisk. Clay stood motionless, smoke curling from his barrel. Ellie stared at the fallen figure in the dirt, chest heaving. "Is he dead?" she asked. Clay stepped forward, checked the body, then looked back. "No, but he's done." He lowered the rifle and turned to her. "You all right?" Asterisk. Ellie nodded slowly. "I think I finally am." Asterisk. The days that followed felt like waking from a storm. Asterisk. Doyle had ridden off, wounded and humiliated. And though Clay kept watch on the ridgeline every night, no vengeance came. Word spread fast in Carson's Bluff. Men talked low over whiskey, saying the girl who'd been left for dead had stood tall with a gun in her hands, and the loner who took her in faced down 4 riders and never blinked. Asterisk. The townsfolk didn't come near, not out of fear, but respect. At the cabin, life grew quieter. Clay fenced in the west pasture. Ellie planted rows of corn, though the soil fought her every step. They worked side by side, sweat-soaked and sunburnt. At night, she read from the battered Bible Clay kept under the floorboards, half the pages torn. All the meaning still intact. *Q. Ever think about leaving again? K. Ellie asked one evening as they watched the sky burn orange behind the ridge. Clay shook his head. Used to think I didn't belong nowhere, K. But maybe I was just waiting to find a reason to stay. She didn't smile, but her eyes said enough. One morning, a rider approached, slow and cautious. Not a threat, just Sheriff Dale. He dismounted, removed his hat, and nodded to Ellie. Miss. She gave him a wary glance, but stayed silent. Dale turned to Clay. Doyle's in a saloon down at Murphy's Wash, bragging about how he'll take his girl back when his shoulder heals. Clay's face remained still. Let him brag. Dale rubbed his jaw. He's got 2 cousins down from Kansas. Might be thinking about setting things right. Then he ought to think harder, Clay said. Dale nodded, then paused. Towns changing, Clay. People hear what you've done. They respect it, even the ones too proud to say it. You ever think about talking a place here? Maybe riding for the law? Clay chuckled. I spent most of my life running from men like you. I ain't what I was either, Dale said. He left the thought unfinished, mounted, and rode off, leaving behind the dust and a sliver of something rare peace. But peace don't always last. 1 week later, Kelly was riding back from the stream with 2 pails of water when she saw the smoke then dark, rising from the tree line like a signal. Her horse tensed. She dropped the buckets and galloped hard. By the time she reached the cabin, flames were licking the porch, climbing toward the roof. Staggered out the front door, coughing, face blackened with soot. His arm was bleeding. Bad. Ambush. He rasped. One of Doyle's cousins set fire to the back wall. Tight to draw me out. She helped him to the well, splashing water on his wounds. You get him? He asked. Clay coughed hard, nodded. He ain't getting up again. Together. They fought the fire. Buckets, wet blankets, smothering dirt. They battled it with everything they had. By nightfall, the cabin stood, scarred but standing. Clay leaned against the well, his breath ragged. You could have been killed, Ellie whispered. He looked at her, voice rough. Would have been worth it. Silence settled between them. Then, Ellie did something she'd never done before. She reached out and took his hand. I ain't going nowhere, Clay. Not ever. His eyes softened. I reckon I finally built a home without meaning to. In the weeks that followed, they rebuilt. Together. Word came a month later that Doyle had died in a bar fight, stabbed over a spilled drink by one of the same men he'd once hired. No trial, no justice. Just fate doing what the law couldn't. Clay and Ellie never spoke of him again. Years passed. The corn grew tall. Chickens clucked in the yard. Children from nearby ranches came to learn how to shoot, how to ride, and if they sat still long enough, how to read. And folks told stories around fires about a girl who'd been left for dead and a man who saved Herb, but it was never clear who saved who. Some say, you ride east of Carson's Bluff, where the wind sings through sunflowers, and the fence line still stands weathered and gray. You might hear a tale on the breeze. A tale about justice, about redemption, and how, sometimes, the loneliest souls are the ones who carry the most light.